ॐ शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So we are doing Drg Drashya Viveka, and with verse number 31, which we did last time, the text is more or less complete. Whatever the author wanted to discuss primarily has been discussed so far. Author has shown the Viveka between Drashta and Drashya, how to do that. Mainly that was the main topic, and he also showed us the identity between Jiva and Brahman, also discussed the Samadhis, so that the sadhaka can focus his mind upon the self and abide in that. And lastly, he showed Jivan Mukti as well as Videha Mukti. In the last verse, the author said in verse number 31, and before that also in verse number 30, it was mentioned that when the knowledge arises, Dehabhimane Galite Vijñate Paramatmani, when the Paramatma is known, and when the identification with the body, the abhimana that I am the upadhi is gone, then what happens? Yatra yatra mano yati tatra tatra samadhayah. As a conclusion to the samadhis, the author said that then there is no need to focus the mind, because wherever the mind goes, it is nothing but Brahman. And now this person knows that very well. Then with the last verse he concluded, verse number 31. It showed both Jivan Mukti as well as Videha Mukti. Jivan Mukti means that even when person is alive, he abides in knowledge. And Videha Mukti means with the fall of the body, there is Mukti, there is liberation, which means that he doesn't have to take birth again, because there is no more ignorance over there. So that is mentioned in verse number 31, which we did last time. I am repeating once again. Vidyate rudaya grantihi chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drushte paravare. So when para and avara is known, when the cause and effect is known, when Jiva and Brahman are known, when Brahman and Jiva, which means that the reality that Brahman is and Jiva, which is superimposed, that Jivatva is superimposed upon Brahman, when this is known, then what happens? All the knots of the heart are broken. All the doubts and vagueness which existed are dispelled. Then, and all the karmas, all the actions which were stored in his account are also destroyed. Which means now there is no reason for rebirth. All the actions, by all the actions is meant Sanchita karma, Agami karma and Prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma are still there. But all his Sanchita means all the actions which were stored in his account, they also get destroyed because the person is no more there. The ahankara, the ego which performed the actions is now no more there, in the sense that the body is still there, but I am this body. The adhyasa, that I am this body, in which the upadhi or the body was taken to be I, doesn't exist anymore. So in short, he doesn't look upon himself as ahankara, and so naturally actions are not there for him. Plus he knows that self does not perform any actions. Self has never performed actions, will never perform actions, and is not performing them even now. Even when he thought that he was performing actions, it was upadhi which was doing that. Atma or the self is ever free from actions. This, when he owns up, then what happens? He is free from the actions which he thought were performed by him. Plus, even the actions which are done in the present, they also do not bind him, because now it is very clear that I am not performing the actions. So in this manner, yes, of course, prarabdha remains, because as I said last time, prarabdha actions are those which have given birth to this body. So these actions are already in motion, and so they will continue to give their result as long as their potential is. It is like the arrow which is already shot. So the arrow is already going towards its target. It has already left the quiver. So it is already in the motion. You cannot stop it in between. This prarabdha karma fall in that category, which means they are already in motion. They have already started giving results. So that cannot be stopped. But that doesn't perturb the wise man, in as much as he now knows that just as the rest of the creation, in that the things are doing what they are supposed to do. In the entire creation, Prakriti is already active, matter is active. Similarly, this body also, which so far he called as mine, so far he called as I, now he doesn't do that. But that is also acting just as the rest of the creation is acting. But he doesn't superimpose that upon himself. So it doesn't matter to him. The point is that it does not matter to him that his body is working, mind is working, intellect is working. Let it do what they are doing. It does not bind him. So in that sense, all the actions get destroyed. Prarabdha continues to be there, and it will remain as long as it does not get exhausted. This is what is the result of the knowledge. And when the body falls off with the end of the prarabdha, whenever that happens, after that there is no birth for him, because he was already in Brahman and he will continue to be there. That Brahman is not a place, he himself is that, but he will be that only. Brahma Veda Brahmaiva bhavati. He has already become Brahman. So far, because of ignorance, he was as it were separated from him, separated from it. But now he has owned up this fact. So, with this verse, practically the text is over. More or less it is over. But still it continues. There are still another, the text continues up to verse number 46. There are about 15 verses. So, what are they doing? What is the subject matter of those verses? So, we will discuss that. Because now, as the Tikakara, the commentator, he points out that there can still be a question in the mind of the sadhaka. What question? That, as you said, that the Sakshi is, Jiva is Brahman. Sakshinaha Brahmatvam eva Swarupam chet tarhi. The question that arises is that if my nature is Brahman, then Jiva is not tenable. Jivatva is not tenable. And if Jiva is real, then Brahmatva is not tenable. Sakshinaha Brahmatvam eva Swarupam chet tarhi Jivatvam na upapadyate. If my true nature is Brahman, then that you call Jiva doesn't apply. Then Jivatvam eva Swarupam chet tada Brahmatvam naiva upapadyate. And the other question is, if Jiva is real, then Brahma is not real. Either Brahman is real or Jiva is real. If Jiva is real, then Brahmatvam, which you talked about, is not real. And if Brahman is real, Jiva is not real. So, this is the question which has arose in his mind. Ubhayathapi, in both these positions, Shastra nairarthakyam syad iti ashankyamanam shishyam prati. So, what happens? In both ways, if Brahman is my true nature, then Jiva is not tenable. And if I am already Brahman, see, the question is, what is bothering him is that if I am already Brahman, then I need not study the Shastras. There is no need for knowledge because it is already accomplished. And if Jiva is real, Jivatvam is real, in that case also Brahmatvam is not tenable. And in that case also studying the Shastras is pointless, nairarthakyam. Why? Because Jivatvam is real. Then what is the point in knowing Brahman? Because Jivatva will not go. Just by studying the Shastras, Jivatva, which is real, will not go, because and Brahmatvam will not become real. And if Brahman is real, then also I already know it. It is an accomplished fact. So there is again no need for Shastras. This is, so now the author is in a way again showing us that Jivatvam is mithya and Brahmatvam only is real. But still, because of ignorance, in spite of being Brahman, Brahman himself has taken himself to be Jiva. So this is what ignorance has done. So this part is again discussed. So that is being discussed again. But in doing so, things are becoming more clear. So by repeating this thing, even if there are some, in case there are some doubts somewhere about who this Jiva is, then it will become clear. So let us begin with verse number 32. Avachinnaschidaabhasah trutiyasvapnakalpitah vigneyastrivito jivah tatradyah paramarthikah. So he says, avachinna chidabhasah trutiyah swapnakalpitah vigneyastrivitah Jivaha. Jivaha Trividaha Vigneyaha. Tatra Adhyah Paramarthikaha. So here let us now first translate the verse. It is said that Jivaha Trividaha Vigneyaha. Jiva is to be known or is known threefold way. Is known in threefold way. Which are these three ways? First is avachinnaha. Who is this thing which you call jiva? Is avachinna. This avachinna, which means conditioned, Brahman conditioned, is called jiva. So author is trying to give us three understandings of jiva. First one is that avachinnaha. This, who is this jiva? Brahman conditioned by upadhi is jiva. This is first understanding. And then second one, chidabhasaha. The reflected consciousness is called jiva. This is second understanding. The reflected consciousness. What is this reflected consciousness? It has been discussed in great detail in the earlier verses. The chidabhasaha, the word itself reveals the meaning. Chit and abhasa. Chit means consciousness and abhasa means reflection. So reflection of consciousness in the subtle body is jiva. Understood? Reflection of consciousness in the subtle body, which is there along with the gross body, is called jiva. This is second one. And the third understanding of the jiva is swapna kalpitaha trutiyaha. Third one, swapna kalpitaha. One, jiva is that which is imagined in the dream. See, in the dream state, there are many entities in the dream state. In the dream state also, when the swapna is going on, there is one jiva interacting with other things. There is one and there are many other also imagined in the dream. So this one who is imagined in the dream is third understanding of jiva. He is also jiva. So there are these three-fold understandings of jiva. Of these three, tatra adhyah paramarthikaha. Of these three which are discussed, avachinna first one, second one is chidabhasaha, and third one is swapna kalpitaha, one imagined in the dream. Of these three, which one is the real one? So the author says adhyah, the first one. The first one, which is that first one? Avachinnaha, conditioned one. Avachinna means Brahman conditioned by upadhi, conditioned by limiting adjunct. Upadhi means limiting adjunct, which means this subtle body and the gross body. So we will explain. So this one, according to the author, is paramarthikaha. Paramarthikaha means it is the absolute reality. In the same text, we had in the earlier verses discussed about these realities. One is absolute reality, second one is empirical reality. Empirical means vyavharika satta. One is paramarthika satta. Paramarthika satta means absolute reality, which is the real, absolutely real. This is called absolute reality, paramarthikaha. Second one is empirical reality. In the vyavahara, what goes on, that is another. And the third one is pratibhasika satta. Pratibhasika means imagined by me. So here, with keeping these three in mind, author is giving these three understandings of jiva. Keeping in mind the paramarthic reality Author said that avachinna is the Paramarthika reality. Second one is Chidabhasa, Jivaha. Jiva is Chidabhasa. So, what is that reality? Vyavharika reality. And the third one, the Jiva imagined in dream. In dream, the Jiva is different. Even though he is sleeping on his bed, in the dream, he may be a different person. Now he is sleeping, but in the dream, he may be playing different roles. He may be a beggar, he may be a king, he may be a teacher, he may be a businessman, he may be an engineer, he may be a doctor, it could be anything. But what is the reality of that Jiva in the dream? What is that? Pratibhasika. Understood? Pratibhasika means imagined, kalpita. So, these threefold understandings of Jivas are given. Of these three, which we just mentioned, author says, Adhyaha Paramarthikaha. The first one is Paramarthikaha, which means the first one is the absolute reality. And what is that? Avachinnaha. Avachinnaha means conditioned. Now let us first understand that. This we have to understand. I will first give you the example. The example is of spot space. This is avachedavadaha. Now this also we had already, this is all reminding us, we are recapping what has gone before. See, there is space which we know, and there are many pots kept on the ground. On the earth, different pots are kept. There is one pot and the space is there. Space is already there and there is a pot. Okay, now this pot, with reference to this pot, the space, the vast space which has no boundaries, which has no shape, which has no body, but still with reference to the pot, the space, the part of the space which is covered by this pot is called pot space. Understood? This is a pot here and this is space. Space is vast, covering the entire creation and much more. Boundless it is. But the same space is referred to as pot space. Why do we call space pot space? Because this pot, this so-called this small pot is, as it were, conditioning the space. There is no real connection between them, but still pot, since the pot is here, space is called pot space, which means this one. Now if the space thinks that I am this much, I am as much of the size as the enclosure of this pot. Supposing the space thinks that I am only this much of the size of the pot, the cavity which the pot has, that much I am, then what happens? Then that will be the limitation which the space has superimposed upon itself by taking the pot as its reality. There is ignorance here, definitely. Space takes himself to be of the size of the pot, but that size of the pot, the limitation of the pot, the boundaries of the pot are superimposed upon the space. Understood? So this is called avachinnaha, conditioned. Space is conditioned. What happens? Parichinnaha, paripurne, parabrahmani, what happens? That which is boundless, as I said, parabrahma, upon that the limitations of the body. First of all, the body and the limitation. Body is space bound, time bound, capacity bound. All those limitations of the upadhi, which means limiting adjunct, are superimposed upon the space. And then space looks upon its, consciousness. Consciousness looks upon itself of the size of the body. This is avachinna. This jiva is avachinna jivaha. There what happens? Upon Parabrahmani, avidya ahankarabhyam avachchedyam yat sakshi chaitanyam sa eva avachinnakyah pratamaha jivaha syat. So this first definition of the jiva, or the understanding of jiva which is given here, is that due to ignorance, this thing which is called body, mind, intellect, complex, along with all its limitations, are superimposed upon Brahman. So this is one understanding of the jiva. Now we come to the second one, Chidabhasaha. Chidabhasa is what? As I said, a reflection of consciousness. Now, consciousness is there, but its reflection falls somewhere. Where will the reflection fall? Just as the sun is there up above in the sky, and down below is a bucket of water, bucket filled with water, and there are many things on the ground, but none of them are reflecting the sun. But since this bucket has water in it, this water is a peculiar thing. It is unique in as much as it has the capacity to reflect back. That capacity it has. Had the water bucket been empty, then the sun would not have been reflected there. But since the bucket is filled with water, this water business, this water reflects sun. Similarly, so sun is reflected in the water. But now the sun, looking in the bucket, takes himself to be that much. This sun which is seen in the water is the abhasa of the sun over there. Understood? Similarly, consciousness gets reflected in the subtle body. In the subtle body too, it is the buddhi or the ahankara. Buddhi, it is intellect which receives the reflection of the consciousness first. So consciousness first gets reflected in the intellect, then it passes to different layers, then it goes to mind, then it goes to sense organs, pranas, etc., and then to the gross body. But the same consciousness, which is limitless, which has no qualifications, no attributes, but when reflected in the intellect, and that intellect has all the attributes, it has qualifications. So this consciousness takes itself to be that one, that is Chidabhasaha. So here it is said, Chil Lakshana Rahitaha Tatvat Avabhasamana Chidabhasaha Antakaranakye. What happens? Actually, truly speaking, this subtle body is Chil Lakshana Rahitaha. It is not conscious. It is inert. It is Jadam. This subtle body is also inert. But still, because of the reflection of the consciousness, it becomes conscious as it were. And then it passes So the subtle body also becomes conscious because of the consciousness getting reflected over there. So that which is chil lakshana rahitah, bereft of consciousness, it becomes conscious, and then it passes on that consciousness to the gross body. And that is how the entire body mind intellect complex, even though Jadam appears as conscious, thanks to the consciousness. So, in short, this is Chidabhasah. Second one. Then the third one, Swapna Kalpitaha Trutiyaha. The third one is the one imagined in the dream. What happens in the dream? Swapnavasthayam. In the dream, Nara Pashu Pakshyadi Aneka Sharira Lakshanam Parigruhya Sarvadisho Yak Paribhramati Sa Eva Swapna Kalpitaha Trutiyaha Jivaha. Jivaha Syad. What happens in the dream? Actually, in the dream there are many. In the dream, when he imagines the dream, or let us say when the dream gets imagined, moment you go to sleep and suddenly after some time you pass on to the dream state. That is why it is called avastha. It is the state of the mind. Deep sleep was also the state of the mind, sushupti. From this deep sleep, the state has now changed to dream state. In the dream, what happens? Imagination, and there is a whole world is created. That whole world is nothing but the same dreamer. In that dream, there are many. There may be a person, human being, there may be an animal, there may be a bird, there may be tree, woman, man, everything, child, old man, everything. This fellow is one among them, among many, because there also there is one and there are many others. So when there are many others, then he is different from them. So this one, he is the subject and interacting with others. So this one who is the subject in the dream, that is the third understanding of himself. So this three ways here the jiva is explained. One is avachinnaha, conditioned one. Brahman, conditioned by this upadhi, is avachinna. Avachinnakyah jivaha syat. Second one is chidabhasah, consciousness getting reflected in the mind or the intellect. Third one is the one imagined in the dream. Of these three, the adhyaha parmarthika, the parmarthik, the absolute reality is conditioned. Condition doesn't mean that along with the upadhi is the reality, no. But there what we have to do is that he has to know that I am not this upadhi. I am not this upadhi. I am this sakshi. I am the consciousness which has nothing to do with this upadhi. Upadhi or this body cannot in any way limit the consciousness. There is absolutely no way that upadhi can limit the consciousness. So that is absolute reality. Because going back to the example, space has nothing to do with the pot. So that is the parmarthik reality. The second one is called vyavharika reality. Which one? Chidabhasah. Because there the consciousness is reflected in the subtle body. Subtle body, and from there to different layers of subtle body and then to the gross body. But moment it gets reflected in the intellect. Now intellect has kartrutva, bhoktrutva. Then the consciousness thinks I am karta, I am bhokta. Now these things are attributes of the Antakarana. But when they are active, and Prakriti is always active, he thinks I am the doer. Consciousness thinks I am the doer. I am the enjoyer. I am walker, talker, all these things. But it is this consciousness, this karta, this bhokta, which does all the things. So empirically, in Vyavahara, what we see is things happening. This one does, talks, comes, goes, everything. He plays multiple roles. Which is this reality? Vyavaharika reality. The kind of reality that it has is called Vyavaharika reality. And the third one, because see, why it is called Vyavaharika? I know myself as so and so, but you also know me as that same person. Since if we are connected to each other, so you also take me to be that, and I also know you in a certain manner. We know that we have to work within the time and space, and whatever rules are there in the Vyavahara, we follow that. They do not apply in the Paramarthik reality, but in Vyavahara they do apply. So that is also some kind of reality, some kind. Then the third one is Pratibhasika. In the dream, if I am a businessman or a businesswoman, you do not know about it, because that is something very intimate to me. What I imagined in dream, you are not aware of. And the life which I had in the dream is personal to me. Temporary, of course, but still, in that no one else has entry. I will give you an example. Supposing in the dream, I lended you 2000 rupees. In the dream, I lended, you also were in my dream. I created you in my dream. And I gave you 2000, you asked and I gave you 2000 rupees. This happened in dream, okay? Now what happens? Now when I wake up and meet you again, then I ask you, give me back my 2000 rupees. I want it now. You will be surprised and you will ask me back, which 2000 rupees? When did you give me? We have not met each other in past so many days. And which then 2000 rupees? You never gave me anything and I never asked in the first place. And still if I insist, no, I gave you, last night I gave you. Which last night? We did not even meet last night. See, why? Because this is Pratibhasika. You had no entry over there. It was intimate to me, personal to me. You did not know anything about it. But I did create you in my dream. But that you were different from the you which I am seeing you now. You follow? Similarly, this Pratibhasika reality, which means the Swapna Kalpitaha Jivaha, is the third one. So in short, here threefold understandings of Jiva are given. Avachinnaha, Chidabhasaha and Swapna Kalpitaha. Now what does the author do is, he is elaborating upon this little further in verse number 34. Let us, verse number 33. We'll proceed with verse number 33. Avachedah kalpita syad, avachedyam tu vastavam, tasmin jivatvam aropad, brahmatvam tu svabhavatah. See, is clarifying. By going into the details, what happens is more and more we are getting more and more clarification. He says, avachhedaha kalpita syat. Of the three, avachhedaha. Now he is explaining the word, now he is concentrating upon the first one, avachinnaha. Avachinna means conditioned. So, what is the meaning of this conditioning? Conditioning. Brahman is conditioned. So, what is the meaning of this avachheda, conditioning? So, author says, avachhedaha kalpitaha kalpita syat. This avachheda, which means the limiting adjunct or the limiting aspect, is kalpita, is imagined, which means it does not intrinsically belong in consciousness. Let us go back to the example of spots. Okay, let me first translate the verse and then I will go into the details. Avachhedaha kalpita syat. This limitations or the conditioning is imagined. But avachhedyam tu vastavam. That which you thought to be limited, the one which is taken to be limited because of the limiting aspects, the limiting adjunct, the one who is taken to be limited is called avachhedyam. That is not imagined. That is vastavam, that is real. Avachhedyam, one who is taken to be limited, that upon which the limitation is projected is real. What is projected is imagined. Understood? So, don't throw away the baby with the bath water. When you give bath to the baby in the hospital, when the child is born, infant is born, then the nurses take the body for cleaning, for giving them shower and bath and all that. Properly it has to be done, systematically, technical thing. That time then the water is to be thrown away because it is impure and all that. But baby is to be retained. Don't throw that away. Similarly, give up the limiting adjunct, not the one which you thought to be limited. Just as in our example of pot space, pot is the limiting aspect, not the space. So, take away this pot or understand it to be mithya, but the space is real. So, avachhedyaha kalpitaha syat. The limiting adjunct, limitations, upadhi is kalpita. Yes, we grant that. But avachhedyam tu vastavam. Tu means however. Avachhedyam, that upon which you projected all this is real. Projection part is mithya. But one, there is something which is there, which exists without projection. The projected aspect is to be given up. But the real one is to be understood. Because, why? So, second line says that tasmin jivatvam aropat. Because upon that real thing, jivatva is superimposed. What is that real? Brahman or consciousness is real. Jivatva is superimposed. Jivatva is to be removed in our minds. But Brahman is to be retained. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, there will be Shunyatvam. Of course, that is also not possible because I am always there. But I won't get the right understanding. Tasmin Jivatvam Aropat, what is superimposed is smallness. But it is not small. Brahmatvam tu Swabhavatah. Swabhavatah. In Swarupa. As far as the real nature is concerned, what is that? Brahmatvam. Upon Brahmatvam, which is the reality, which is the Swarupa, on that Jivatva is superimposed. So that is Kalpita. Understand what is Kalpita and what is real. These two things are mixed up. There is something real and there is Kalpita. This, you have mixed up this, and this is the cause of all anartha. So, author said, Avachhedaha kalpita syat, avachhetyam tu vastavam. Vastavam is avachhetyam. Consciousness is real. Going back to our example of pot space, space is real. That potness is also real in a way. It is there in its place. But don't think that space is of the size of the pot. To take the space of the size of the pot is wrong. There may be a pot, let it be there. But don't let the pot be where it is. Don't take the space to be limited by the pot. Because it is the pot which is there in the space. And space is much more than the pot. There is no linear connection, no connection at all between the space and the pot. Upon space, Jivatva is, upon space, potness is superimposed. In reality, it is space. Similarly, in reality, there is Brahman, consciousness. And upon that, body is also there. But to take the body as consciousness and to think of consciousness, to think of myself as possessed of, as having the nature of the body, which means limited, that is wrong. Swabhava, intrinsically what is true about me is consciousness, pure existence, pure ananda, pure knowledge. Rest is all superimposed. This we should know. Why? Because this two always comes together. This ahankara, I am so and so. When you say I am a woman, I am a human being, I am fat, then what happens? In that sentence also, let us look at this simple sentence, I am fat, sthuloham. When I say I am sthulaha, I am fat, there is combination of two. There is in this, there is one avachhedyam and there is another avachhedaha. The fatness is there somewhere and I am is also there. I is correct, it is consciousness, fatness is in the body, fine. But to combine I and fatness, I am fat. When I superimpose this fatness which belongs elsewhere upon consciousness or upon me, and then I join them. Mithuni krutya, satyan rute mithuni krutya. I join them, I combine them, which is not possible. And then I take myself to be fat. There is no proof in this. I never waited to verify. Never asked anyone whether I am fat or not. Is it right or wrong? Fatness is there in the body, definitely. If you weigh the body, oh my God, so many kilos. But not I. But that which is in somewhere, some other place, we put here and the parts of this there. Anyonya adhyasa is there. So, we need to separate that which we call this ahankara. In that, I am this, when I say I am so and so, that I is correct, but so and so is superimposed. So, that is what is pointed out in this verse. Then, again, author says in verse number 34, to show now the author is proceeding in the direction of explaining Mahavakya. Why? Because to show the identity of Jiva with Brahman. Because Brahman has taken himself to be Jiva. So now that Brahman which takes himself to be Jiva has to be enlightened about the fact that you are not the Jiva, but you are Brahman. You don't have to become Brahman, but know that you are. So, in that direction the author is going. Let us read the verse number 34. Avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmanaikatam tattvamasyadi vakyani jagurnetara jivayoho. So, now the author says, avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmani ekatam. Purnena brahmana ekatam. Avachinnasya jivasya. The jiva which takes himself to be limited is one with Brahmana. There is total oneness. It is not that jiva is to be taken as he is and then Brahman as it is and they are one. Not that way. You have to give up something from the one who takes himself to be jiva and then know that that is Brahman. The jiva aspect is to be fully dropped from the mind. And then what remains is Brahman. This is how the identity is. Tattvamasyadi vakyani jaguhu. The statements like Tattvamasi, that thou art, declare the identity between the Sakshi and the fullness which is Brahman. Not the identity between the other two jivas, which means not Chidabhasa and not the one which is imagined in the dream. Because the verse number 32 talked about threefold jivas. Of that, now see, we have to understand that avachinna, the one who takes himself to be conditioned by jivatva, is being told that you are Brahman. This is what the author is saying here. Not the other two, not Chidabhasa and not one who is imagined in the dream. Not those two, but the one avachinna. So, with that, the complete identity with Brahman is shown here. So, there are many Mahavakyas appearing in the scriptures. Mainly, there are four, there are many, but the famous one are four. Which are they? One appears in Chandogya Upanishad, which is Samaveda, Tattvamasi, occurs in 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. This is in Samaveda. Then there is Yajurveda. That is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad occurs in Yajurveda. There the Mahavakya is Aham Brahmasmi. Then there is third one, Ayam Atma Brahma. And the earlier Brihadaranyaka was in Yajurveda. This Ayam Atma Brahma is the statement from Mandukya Upanishad. And Mandukya Upanishad occurs in Atharva Veda. Ayam Atma Brahma. This my Atma is Brahman. And the fourth one, famous one, is Prajnanam Brahman. Prajnanam Brahman is the statement appearing in Rigveda. And that is Prajnanam Brahman. This statement occurs in Aitareya Upanishad. This Aitareya Upanishad is in Rigveda. So in short, all the four Vedas are taken. And Upanishads appearing in these four Vedas, and in those Upanishads, these particular statements are there hidden. So all of them in one voice show the identity between Jiva and Brahman. So here we have to understand that avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmana ekatam. The total identity of the Jiva with Brahman is what? To that conditioned one. So the conditioning is mithya, the limiting adjunct is mithya, and to that one it is said that you are Brahman, not their other two. Jaguhu means the Mahavakya Tattvamasi declares to this one that conditioned Jiva is not Jiva but it is Brahman. It's not talking about the reflected consciousness and the one imagined in the dream. The one who is imagined in the dream is not told that you are Brahman, plus not to that Chidabhasa also. Because Chidabhasa also is a Vyavharika Satta. This is the view of this author. There are difference of opinions. Some authors prefer Pratibimba-vada, others prefer Avachedavada. This author seems to prefer Avachedavada, which means that this conditioning is false. Even with Chidabhasa also we can say that the one which is reflected in the water is told that your reality is not this reflection. No, you are not the one. You are definitely reflected in the subtle body. Consciousness is definitely reflected in the subtle body. But remove that part which is reflecting you. Remove the reflecting media, and then what remains is consciousness. So remove the antakarana part, the subtle body part. Do that Viveka, that I am not this, mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani naham. Then what is there is pure consciousness. But here, as I said, this author seems to say that avachinnasya purnena brahmana ekatam, the complete identity is shown to that avachinna by saying that the conditioning adjunct is not your reality. Remove that from your mind, and then what remains is your reality. So this is how once again the identity between Jiva and Brahman is shown. We will proceed further, in which again the mithyatva of Jiva plus this Vyavaharika reality is shown in the rest of the verses, which we will do next time. Thank you. Hari Om. Om Purnamatah Purnamitam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.